All right, guys. So in this video, I wanted to quickly make this to, first of all, before we get any further, to kind of dispel a lot of the myths and the lies that are often, that people just say about land ownership, which are not true. So first thing is you do not need a realtor or a title company to buy land. They can be very helpful in the process, but all you really need is, if you know someone that's selling a piece of land, you can just have the attorney draft up the ownership and the closing, and you can have that be it. A title company can be helpful and a realtor, but it is not like super required. It's just a great way to add more fees onto your purchase. A realtor can be great to find a piece of land that's right for you. They can show you the property and guide you in the right way. But if you already know someone that is selling a piece of land and you just want to buy it from them without adding on a bunch of fees, you can buy directly with the owner and an attorney. So the second thing that we hear all the time, if it's cheap land, it must be a scam. Or even just cheap land. People think cheap land is a scam, which it's not. It's just that there's so much land in the United States, and some of it is way off in the boonies and the rural areas where you need to drive a couple hours to get to. So just because it's cheap does not make it a scam. There's just an abundance of land available currently. Every if you look at every decade and you look at land prices, they can slowly start going up and up and up. And that's because of more development and more people just buying land. But just because it's cheap does not make it a scam. But there are things to look out for. Some land isn't usable, and we're going to cover that. And by the end of this, if you stick around, you're going to know what to look out for, and you're going to learn so much about the whole process. But first thing, just because it's cheap doesn't make it like a scam. The third thing is the lie is you can't finance land unless you go through a bank. So as we kind of covered in the last video, there's this thing called owner financing or seller financing, where you can basically make payments to the owner of the land, just like you do when you buy a house with a bank loan. You're making payments to the bank, and you can make payments to the seller. And sometimes sellers might not offer it because they just want cash. But sometimes you might get lucky and find sellers that will offer that, and you can make payments to them. The next lie is land doesn't make money unless you build something on it. Though that can be true, there are other ways to make money from land if that's what you're looking for. A piece of land that I purchased, what I've done is I could put it on Hip Camp, which is a place for people who are looking for a place to camp, like who have RVs and they just want to camp on their land, and they'll pay you per night to stay on your land. So that's one way that you can make money without building like a traditional house or a shopping mall or something crazy. You could turn it into a parking lot, outdoor parking. There's this big need for truck parking, like those huge, like the 52 feet big rigs that you see on the highway. People need a place to put them. So outdoor parking can be a way, right? So there's a few different ways, if you're creative, that land can make money. Depending on the location and what your plan is for it, that don't involve like having to build, like a brick house. So the next thing is the lie is buying land is complicated and risky. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. I find it to be the simplest thing to purchase, right? If you're buying a house, you have to actually inspect the house to make sure that, the plumbing is good, the electrical, the roof, and the water heater and all that stuff. So land, you're just buying the piece of land. If you walk the piece of land, you do a few pieces of due diligence and research, it's actually a pretty simple and straightforward purchase, and I do not find it risky. But I might be biased, but it's just if you buy a house, you're buying the land underneath and the structure on top. With land, you're only buying just the land. And the last one, which is, a total lie, is I have to be rich to buy and own land, right? We all know that Bill Gates is buying a ton of land, and there's a lot of wealthy people buying up tons of land. And that often has us thinking like, oh, I need to be rich to buy and own land. No, you actually just need to know where to look and have the education, which you're totally getting from this course, and you will if you stick around till the end. So yeah, you do not have to be rich to buy land. You just need to have a willingness and have the education to look in the right places. So that's it for this video. The next video we're going to cover is who should buy land. And yeah, I want you to think about if there's any things that, I said in this about the lies of land ownership that you thought were the truth. So yeah, this next video we're going to cover is